what are the core features that you believe a marketing OS needs, that agencies who are building this marketing OS need to build first? And why do you think that these are the most important?
I think the first decision is platform versus like an overlay of interoperable connectors.
Okay.
And uh, so to build upon that is, do you want to build a proprietary platform that your agency and your clients, assuming that they would pay for this, can work within, that is kind of, within your four walls, so to speak, that is your discrete specific platform? Or do you build an interoperable layer of connectors that sits on top of the client's stack, that sits on top of their Salesforce or their DAM or their CDP and
Mhm.
all the other components, and within that is like the agency's APIs and the agency's agents and the intelligence that Jonathan, we just talked about, that the agency builds, that helps activate, on top of that. And the reason I say that is that we're seeing both. We're seeing, I'm seeing, both the platform approach, and the connector approach. And so there's like a timestamp on these approaches, and that necessarily doesn't mean one's better or another. It's just it's just trial and experimentation. And so that's the first choice, is like, do we build a platform, or do we build something that can kind of interoperably fit on top of whatever situation? If platform, then I think the anatomy of the marketing operating system as a platform is five things. It's interface, ID graph, planning, ideation, and a production content supply chain are the components of the platform approach.
Yeah, it's interesting, Jay. When I think about that, I think you kind of alluded to this in terms of people are going to decide what they're going to build, what they're going to layer. I think on a macro level, agencies are going to find themselves into kind of three camps, right? Those folks who want to buy who want to build it themselves. So they're going to be the bakers. All they're going to want is raw ingredients from their marketplace. And that's
Yep.
becoming easier to do with both APIs and this idea of, again, the promise of what
Yep.
an agentic interconnected ecosystem looks like. Bakers are going to be, and even inside of a baker model, on certain parts of that stack that you just laid out, they're still going to need to actually be, either a cake box buyer, right, where it's a lot of pre-made ingredients ready to go, or they're going to need to buy a full cake. And I think that's going to be a maturity curve that we're working with our clients to figure out, and that I think the market's trying to figure out, is where does it make sense for an agency to invest in being a baker, and where should they just continue to buy the cakes, and what's in between, right? Because a lot of things are changing really quickly, right? The idea that you would have full APIs, for example, into Salesforce a couple of years ago was ludicrous. They had
Right.
such lock-in around the platform. But now, we're seeing, whether it's through Agentforce or other things, they're opening that up more so than they ever have. And there's a concept of, when does the SaaS platform become, in some cases, a always-on orchestration layer that you may or may not be logging into, right? The thing that you formerly had to do, hands-on keyboard actions, may now be more and more of an agent-based workflow driven somewhere
Right.
else.
Yeah.
So I think that's the model we think is really important for everyone to consider, is where do you want to be a baker? Where can you create unique competitive advantage by doing that? Versus where are you going to be assembling certain ingredients that are pre-made, and where are you just saying, for these functions, I need someone else to be my expert that I can plug in. That doesn't mean it's not part of your core stack, I don't think. I don't think it means that you're not taking ownership of the outcomes as a principle, and this is part of my product stack today. But it's no longer just so I think that's part of the piece, is that you're not going to just outsource those solutions and treat them as disposable transactional relationships. I think independent agencies are going to be investing more into which pieces do they want to own inside of that.